culture and morals are a product of unregulated capitalism and materialism. And
I haven't got a problem with capitalism.
Unregulated capitalism and materialism. And what we've also mentioned is that and what surprised a lot of people is that the number of births have plateaued. They're not going up on worldwide. In America, the number of births have dipped. But the most common name for a baby is Mohamed. That is the most common name now.
Well, in the UK.
In the UK, it used to be a few years ago. It happened in Norway, Mohamed.
In Norway,
correct. So there's the Muslim wave sweeping across Europe, and I'll tell you right now, we all know that Muslims have lots of children. And this means that if the number of children has plateaued, it means actually that most people's childbirths are going down, whereas Muslims are staying the same.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I think it's something that Douglas Murray has touched upon this matter in the past.
In 40 years, white people will be in the ethnic minority throughout the UK, and we will slowly be all Muslim. We'll have to be.
Well, and yeah, I mean, they are very passionate about their religion, but I mean, it's not going to happen in my lifetime.
You'd be surprised. I mean, did you ever imagine that Mohammed would be the most common name? Patel was 50 years ago.
Yeah, you say that, but the thing is, you've also got to consider that we've got a larger pool of names that we choose from in the UK.
Yeah, but white people don't choose Mohammed, okay?
Whereas Mohammed, particularly in the Muslim culture, Mohammed was it's profitable. It's a prophet's name, and they choose to go down. I mean, but the thing is, you don't get many children in this country being called Jesus. Yet you go to someone like Latin America, Jesus, which is the name for Jesus, is quite a popular name over there. But over here, we've actually got a lot more trendy with our names.
Yes, but no, I see your point, and it's a very, very intelligent.
There's a larger pool that we're choosing from, so
that's
statistically,
right. But it still means
gives the right answer.
It still means we've reached a watershed. So it might not necessarily signify a complete overwhelming of the baby population, but nevertheless, we're reaching a watershed now, and it's the start.
Well, I think if you look back in history, I think it happened in Lebanon. Actually, it wasn't so long ago when I think a lot of the Muslims came. And look, I have a problem with Muslims as a whole, actually. But I think it was a lot of people came in from Syria into Lebanon and things like that. And I think Lebanon was, and someone may have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think Lebanon was actually a Christian country when it was highly successful.
Do you think in Saudi a Saudi nurse would have been sacked for?
Can I just finish this statement and then you can jump in there in a second? So Lebanon, when it was predominantly Christian. And then the Syrians started to come in and things like that, and all of a sudden it turned into a Muslim country, and then in some ways that's where all the troubles actually began. And Lebanon went through war, and look where it is now in comparison.
See, that's really interesting. I didn't know that.
I think you need to look at, as I said, my history in that area is probably not as
but you see that
it's not as vast as it is in other areas.
Being Christian, it was devoutly Christian, wasn't it? It was.
What Lebanon was.
It was people were practicing Christianity properly, not. It wasn't the atomized Christianity that you have here by people not bothering to go to church anymore. So I don't think there will be the war and unrest here. I just think people will just take over. There might be a little bit of social unrest.
So in fact, you could even go one step further, because if you were an astute military commander, and I think it was one of the religious leaders who actually said, I can't believe we're talking about I'm not sure I'm sort of comfortable talking about this sometimes because it's probably a subject that I'm not sure would be interpreted right every time, and people managing it.
Opinion.
It is. But there was a Muslim religious leader who actually said it's almost like the way to win this, to convert everybody to Islam, is to get people into different countries into high positions. And the thing is, if you're an astute strategic military leader, it's almost like that game of chess, isn't it? It's the way you move the pieces to be the most powerful positions where you can actually have the biggest influence. So in this country, we've got is it who is he? Who's the Muslim guy who's in the on the front bench? I think he's Home Secretary.
Sajid
Is he Home Secretary? God's truth. Yeah. So, and the thing is, actually, I quite like him. Actually,
he's actually pretty capable, isn't he?
He's not. He hasn't really. He hasn't really bought into this whole thing, and I think there's even a guy who used to be very strong, spoke very highly amongst the Muslim population. He's on LBC. He's on LBC. What's his name? He's on LBC. I can't remember his name. He's been on Question Time and things like that. And he...
Ian Dale?
Sorry?
Ian Dale?
No, Muslim guy.
I know what you mean, yes. A very, very interesting, nice guy.
And he is. And he's actually approaching it on a far more rational level from someone who actually lives in this country now.
But he's thought through it, and he's been in prison in Turkey as well for it. And he was an Islamic extremist for his religious views, and he was an Islamic extremist.
And he sort of, after the Rotherham thing. So we've just come back. We just had to.
Majid Nawaz, wasn't it? The
that's
LBC
right.
presenter.
So he went to. I think he went to prison in Egypt, and he started reading stuff on Amnesty International and things like this, and actually had a change of heart in terms of how he approached it, and now he's become a lot more logical in his thing. So he condemned the thing about what happened in Rotherham.
He grew up because he grew up in a persecuted minority, so you can see
in Southend-on-Sea, wasn't it? In that time. So I've got to say, I mean, he probably did have a lot of resentment.
He's highly intelligent.
He is highly
open-minded
intelligent
gentleman.
Look, there's some elements of him that I probably don't agree with, but the thing is, if you actually wanted a rational Muslim voice in this country, I think he's actually one to listen to right now.
I agree with that.
And if you actually hear him in LBC and things like that, he's got a very peripheral view, as opposed to very tunnel visioned, which is obviously the opposite. So in that respect, but the thing is, so if you actually think about what's happened in places like Lebanon and things like this. But there is a lot of conflict over here, and it's all underneath the surface. And the politicians are so busy turning a blind eye to it, because all they're really looking to do, and we've discussed this before, is looking to get re-elected. It's like why Theresa May has held on for so long to her post is because she, as the second woman who hasn't lived up to the same level of expectation as Margaret Thatcher, doesn't want to be seen as the failure, as the second woman to be able to do that. And
so nobody else has wanted her to post.
Well, no one else wants her now. But do you know what? But it's not always the best person who actually gets to become a state leader. It's the one who's the most marketable. It's the one who you can sell to the market. They're the salesperson of the political party.
Well, I think most people are coming to the conclusion that democracy is essentially not working anymore. Because it is about
but you're not going to go to dictatorship, are you? I mean, you talk about dictatorships in the past. That's never going to. It's never going to happen in this country. I mean, we use democracy very lightly in this country.
Not necessarily dictatorship. You see, the trouble with a dictator is that they're not bred to lead. So they simply usurp. But sovereign leaders are bred to lead, and that's a different kettle of fish. And in fact, all of the modern history of mankind over the last 2,000-3,000 years is actually is surrounding sovereign leaders of all countries and nations.
That's not going to work. That's going to be an absolute disaster in some ways. So you pick someone from a young age, you groom them to lead because they show leadership qualities. Then you realise as they get older, they become more narcissistic.
Yes, that's true.
You know, and things like that. And you know what? When you actually look at, you know, okay, admittedly someone like Alexander the Great stood out in history in that respect, but how many other people who probably followed that same path?
Unmitigated disasters.
Yeah,
yes.
you know, that we've never actually heard on.
And that's what leads to flawed concepts of the rule of the rabble, you see. But going back to the nurse, can you imagine in Saudi Arabia a Muslim nurse giving solace to a dying Christian patient by reciting the Quran? First of all, I'm just thinking about it now. If it was a relative of mine, I would be comforted by that because, first of all, my dying relative would know they're in a Muslim country. That nurse is showing that she cares and wants to show her care. And I would be touched. And the fact that this poor nurse in this country has been sacked is a sign of a collapsing society, quite frankly.
Look, I mean, one of the things that the woman did, I mean, I'm not overly religious and I do believe in God. And I used to go to church on a regular basis. I left the church I was for very different reasons, which I may share if we have time. But ultimately, what she was doing in some ways was cleansing the thoughts of of her heart and his heart as well. In some ways, which is what we look towards, don't we? To actually have inner peace for herself, obviously provide inner peace for him. So the thing is, the intention with which she did it was coming from a place of the heart, I suppose, if you want to go down.
And remember, we said it's emotional and reflex rather than someone who's thought about it.
So her intention wasn't to do harm, but to actually give peace. Yeah. And the thing is, she got sacked for that. And I've got to say, whoever in this country actually sacked her should be hung, drawn, and quartered.
That was the nursing regulatory body, unfortunately.
Yeah,
nursing
hung,
general
drawn, and
council.
quartered. What sort of people are there? I don't know. I'd like to know what sort of.
And she appealed it in court, and it was upheld. Can you believe it?
And well, that's disgusting.
So again,
two people
judge should be hung, drawn, and quartered as well.
Weak people running this country. What can I say? You know,
not hung, drawn, and quartered. Re-educated. Let's face it.
Rehabilitated.
Indeed, like the Chinese doing their rehabilitation.
Oh, no,
camps.
I've got to say, for them to actually uphold that and put them in a position of power because someone actually is given a little peace and kindness in their own way. How can that be? How can that be? It's like someone saying to me, "What's the Masonic? What's the Islamic saying when you greet someone and wishing them like bless you and things like that?"
Assalamu alaikum.
So they say that, and people have said that to me, but someone said that to me before, and someone said God bless you before, and things like that. And when they say things like that, it's done with good intent,
with goodness.
All right, and the thing is, you either accept it, but you don't get offended by it. I mean, what sort of people are running this nursing authority? It's disgusting.
Well, don't forget, we're not here to express personal opinion.
Actually, I'm sorry. Okay. I think we are.
Well, I'm here to try and be more clinical. And the clinical side is that, first of all, we're a country that doesn't have any identity. So people don't know how to behave. How about that? We don't have any real ideas of how to behave anymore. Secondly, the nurse almost certainly behaved reflexly because most of our behaviour is emotional, and her reflex was to do good. And don't forget, she didn't replace any of the normal medical care. That all happened. And as I said to you, if we were in a Muslim country with a proper Muslim identity, I don't think any of us would be offended if one of our dying relatives was recited the Quran as some kind of solace, because we know the nurse wanted to do was to pass over comfort and faith. And furthermore, the person in the Muslim country would expect nothing less.
But what gets me though, I mean, we don't use the word. We use the word Islamophobic if we actually make a criticism of certain elements of it, but no one actually uses the word Christian phobic, do they? Something against that. And as I said, it doesn't help the Muslim community any more than it helps the Christian community. To actually, if you actually want to unite a country, it's almost as though the same rules got to apply for everybody.
Well, what was interesting, I was listening to Nick Ferrari this morning, on LBC, and it was quite clear from the tone of his voice what he thought about it all.
Oh, what did he say?
Well, the tone of his voice was, I think he was upset and a little bit shocked. Yet the people he was talking to who supported the decision were clearly the Jobsworth people.